Good afternoon, I'm Charmaine Colvin and you are listening to Apna Radio 93.9 Dublin South FM. On India this week, India has relaxed restrictions on Chinese investment as its economy comes under pressure from surging energy prices in the wake of the Middle East war. In a statement late on Tuesday, Prime Minister Narendra Modi's cabinet gave the green light to investments in capital goods, electronics and solar cell sectors from neighbouring land bordering nations. While no direct reference to China was made in the statement, the highly bureaucratic rules, dubbed Press Note 3, come in the wake of deadly border clashes between the militaries of the two giant Asian rivals 6 years ago. The rules made all investments by land border sharing countries subject to government approval. The new guidelines will provide clarity and ease of doing business in India and facilitate investments which can contribute towards greater FDI inflows, access to new technologies, domestic value addition, expansion of domestic firms and integration with the global supply chain, India's government said. This would help in leveraging and enhancing India's competitiveness as a preferred investment and manufacturing destination. Modi's government had been discussing relaxing the rules amid industry pressure to ease Chinese flows. The conflict in the Middle East has severely disrupted the flow of oil and gas, and the rupee has tumbled to its lowest level against the dollar. The move also comes as New Delhi is navigating its relationship with the US, its largest trading partner. US President Donald Trump has temporarily allowed India to buy some Russian oil, previously a source of contention between the two sides, and a trigger for a higher tariff rate on Indian exports. Trump claimed that India's purchases were funding Moscow's war in the Ukraine. He has since reduced the tariff to 18%. The trade and diplomatic rift with Washington pushed India to deepen ties with other partners, and it struck long-pending trade agreements with others, including the EU, this year. While China is India's second-largest trading partner, the gross FDI inflow from Beijing was just $2.67 million in the fiscal year ending in March 2025, a drop in the overall total of $50 billion. Indian businesses say they are struggling to keep operations running as gas supplies are disrupted by the US and Israel's war on Iran. Restaurant owners are scrambling to keep kitchens running, and entrepreneurs in industries like ceramics and fertilizers say they are unable to maintain their production and are warning of shutdowns. India has said it is not short of gas, but has invoked emergency measures to ensure supplies get to domestic consumers and other key users. The country meets half of its total gas consumption through imports, much of which comes through the Strait of Hormuz, a narrow Gulf choke point where shipping has effectively been halted by retaliatory Iranian strikes. The conflict, now in its 11th day, has led to millions of barrels of oil and gas getting stuck near the Strait of Hormuz. About 40 to 50% of Indian crude oil imports pass through the narrow waterway. It also carries roughly 50 to 60% of the country's liquefied natural gas, LNG, imports and about 80 to 85% of its liquefied petroleum gas, LPG, shipments. For restaurants, cafes and millions of other eateries across India, the top concern is LPG, widely used as cooking gas. India imports 80 to 85% of the LPG it consumes annually, making it the world's second-largest LPG importer after China. Almost all of it comes from Gulf producers, mainly Qatar, Saudi Arabia, the UAE and Kuwait, passing through the Strait of Hormuz. Analysts say LPG supply is the more immediate vulnerability for India. Stocks held by refiners and distributors are estimated to cover only about 2 to 3 weeks of demand. India's domestic LNG output meets only a fraction of demand in an economy that increasingly depends on gas for electricity generation, fertilizer production, city gas distribution, transport and industry. The chief executive of India's largest airline, IndiGo, has resigned months after a crisis that forced the carrier to cancel thousands of flights. The airline confirmed Pieter Elber's departure with immediate effect, saying he stepped down for personal reasons, without sharing further details. The move follows intense scrutiny after widespread cancellations linked to new pilot roster rules left passengers stranded across India last year. IndiGo controls about 2/3 of the country's domestic aviation market, making disruptions to its operations a major issue for India's fast-growing air travel sector. The airline operates a fleet of around 440 aircraft and runs mostly domestic services, along with a few international routes to destinations in the Middle East, Europe and Asia. It has played a significant role in the rapid growth of India's aviation sector, which is one of the fastest expanding air travel markets in the world. Indigo said in a press statement on Tuesday that its co-founder Rahul Bhatia will take charge of the airline in the interim, while the company searches for a new chief executive. In December, Indigo cancelled about 4,500 flights, the largest disruption in the airline's 20-year history, leaving thousands of passengers stranded at airports across the country. Disruption followed the introduction of new pilot duty and rest regulations in India, designed to reduce fatigue among flight crews. The airline later acknowledged it had misjudged how many pilots it would need once the rules came into force. In a landmark ruling, India's Supreme Court has allowed the removal of life support of a 31-year-old man who has been in a vegetative state for more than a decade. This is the first instance of court-approved passive euthanasia, the act of withdrawing or withholding life-sustaining treatment in India. The man, Harish Rana, had not left a will specifying directives for his treatment before he had an accident. India legalised passive euthanasia in 2018, but active euthanasia, any act that intentionally helps a person kill themselves, remains illegal. Rana suffered serious head injuries after falling from a fourth-floor balcony in 2013. He has remained in a comatose state since then. Over the years, his parents petitioned courts several times to allow their son's life support system to be removed. Rana's case has sparked a debate in India around the ethics of court-approved passive euthanasia, with some noting that it goes against the principle of self-determination, which is the foundation of a living will. A living will is a legal document which allows a person over 18 years to choose the medical care they would like to receive if they develop a terminal illness or condition with no hope of recovery. Wednesday's order paves the way for the medical boards to exercise their clinical judgment regarding the withdrawal of treatment for Rana. And finally, a short promotional film challenging the traditional view in India that a married daughter must stay with her husband in their marital home, even if he is abusive, has spotlighted domestic violence and won hearts across the country. 3.5-minute Band Baija Bitya, Hindi for a wedding band and daughter, is the moving tale of a father who goes to retrieve his daughter from her violent matrimonial home and uses the celebratory wedding band as a mark of defiance. The film stars Bollywood actor veteran Gajraj Rao, one of Bollywood's finest character actors and celebrated for his role in hit Bollywood film Bad Hai Ho, said the response to the film had been overwhelming. And that's all from me. You have been listening to Apna Radio 93.9 Dublin South FM.
Everything's fine on 93.9 Dublin South FM.